World News Motorsport Report.
The results from last weekend's NASCAR ARCA race series event at Daytona in the United States. The race was won by Bobby Gerhart. He's not pretty at all, though. Second, Mark Thompson, rubbish, no boobs whatsoever there. Third, John West Townley, he hasn't got nice hair. Fourth, James Bashir, don't want to look at his bottom. Fifth, Patrick Shelter, utterly useless, don't fancy him whatsoever. But most importantly, in sixth place, and basically should have won on merit, it's Danica Patrick. I like her a lot. I like the way she drives the car and stuff, and she looks really good. Her hair's really shiny. I'd like to kiss her.
Hello, speedsters. I'm Gareth. He's Richard.
Hello.
He's Zog.
Hello.
And the countdown stands at about 30 days to the start of the F1 season. And I know I speak for every sad maniac who downloads this programme, including the three sad maniacs around this microphone, when I say I'm genuinely excited about this.
It is genuinely exciting.
I'm very excited.
Genuinely. Did anyone follow Valencia testing last week?
Not as devotedly as you did.
Did you, Zog?
A little, yeah, for a little bit.
There was a live sort of report thing via tweet and via Autosport, which is fab.
No,
I wasn't following the live updates.
Not you were right on it, weren't you?
I was monitoring it live as it went out, as the Ferraris went out, and then the BMW Sauber that's got a Ferrari engine went out. Bonkers. And
Who was that? Did somebody suggest it to you on your Twitter feed? That the reason it's still called BMW Sauber Ferrari is because they couldn't be bothered to order new stationery.
Exactly, which is the correct answer. I'm almost certain of it.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because it actually makes no sense. But anyway.
I think their name will change by the first race, but because they were entered as BMW
Yeah, I was
Sauber.
going to say, I think it has to do,
It's complex.
Admin stuff. Well, since you were following the closest, what to you was the biggest surprise of testing?
That the Williams looks just like a cricket bat.
Fair enough.
That was the biggest surprise. The Ferraris seem to be quick out the box. Well, all right,
that's the
hang
thing.
on.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, to me that was the biggest thing.
Let's not get carried away, right? Apparently they were doing short runs on a light fueled load.
Yeah, it's just testing.
Testing.
Don't get too excited
But
about it.
I'd be confident if I were Ferrari. Ross Brawn, or Ross Mercedes, as I believe is his name.
He's now changed his name to legally, yes.
He said that the Ferraris looked quick and that the McLarens were solid and that
He'd been over and tapped them.
And that the Mercedes GP car, that doesn't sound right.
It's a bit odd, isn't it?
So
It's like being in the 30s.
Halfway through the season, you'll be used to it. I think it'll be. Give it a couple of races.
What was his name? Braumschiff or something? The Rosenbauer. I'm thinking
Rosemeyer.
That's it.
Bernd Rosemeyer.
Bernd Rosemeyer.
Yeah. Great.
I think he was driving. He's changed the name to Michael Schumacher.
He drove for Auto Union, didn't he?
Yeah,
as well.
He set a sort of an unofficial speed record for driving on a public road. Obviously closed public road rather than one that's in use. Back in the 1930s, the British had a bit of a stranglehold on the kind of outright land speed record. You know, go anywhere with any kind of car and how fast can you make it go. Germany similarly had a stranglehold on the speed record set on a public road.
Yeah, all right.
I suppose to some extent showcasing their lovely new autobahns.
Yes.
But Rosemeyer was killed attempting to beat the 268 mile an hour speed record that Rudolf Caracciolo had set that morning. So speed record on a public road is almost 270 miles an hour, and it was set in 1938.
That is
amazing,
incredible. Isn't it?
It really is incredible.
They were fabulous machines then. I've been reading a little bit about
very brave men.
The golden age of motor racing, as it's called, and I had a conversation with a mate the other day who reckons that we are now entering a new golden age of Formula One, where you have this whole new tranche. Did you like the way I said that?
I like the way you said tranche.
Of new teams or old teams back again, if you will forgive Lotus the sins. But you have this situation where you have Jensen and Lewis in the same team, both, sequential world champions, consecutive world champions.
Yeah.
That's, this is like the McLaren in the 90s with Senna and Prost.
Yeah, but even more so, sort of.
Yeah. Along with the returnee Schumacher, it's just almost too exciting.
That's a good one. Hamilton and Button. Who's Senna? Who's Prost?
Oh, good question.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious actually, because I would say Hamilton is Senna because he's just absolute supernatural
Ruthless.
talent.
Yeah.
Button is Prost because of the smoothness.
Exactly
Absolutely,
right. Yeah, I would not disagree with that.
Really, there is that. But anyway, that's that.
I think
And I was going to say maybe a slight caveat to comparing Jensen to Prost is simply that,
Not as good.
well, Prost,
Can't stop being
he did
mean.
win a few championships.
Yeah, he did.
And
if anyone's
you know,
good at Photoshop, though, and they fancy putting Button and Hamilton's heads onto Prost and Senna in those rather cool Marlborough overalls that they used to have, Nomex, race suits, whatever, overalls, boiler suits that they used to have back then. Knock yourself out and then send it to us, and we'll look at it and we'll describe it in a podcast.
that works really well
It's a
on
brilliant,
radio.
it's a great audio thing.
So,
Picture competition.
McLaren's car, I described it as the kitchen knife. Do you not think it looks like a kitchen knife, a bread knife, with that very high shark's fin that actually connects to the rear wing?
Yes, it does.
That's a first. 2 years ago, they had the potato peeler with that bridge front wing, so they're staying in the kitchen there. I like, which is good, very consistent.
This is sorry to interrupt, but this is one of the interesting things actually about now the cars have all been revealed pretty much. That the variations, there's some similarities, but there's also variations. The Ferrari, very pointy.
Very pointy.
Very pointy.
Very, very pointy.
But then a lot of other ones are sort of going the McLaren route, and then the Mercedes is actually sort of very interesting, very sort of fluid front end. Do you know what I mean? That sort of, it's got very wavy, very sculpted, interesting.
I think it looks like a dolphin. I tweeted up a stupid. Did you see that? A stupid picture of a dolphin with Petronas and Mercedes sponsorship and MIG sponsorship on the side.
It does have quite a sort of, the nose does make a nice little sort of leap.
Yeah.
Over. It's
Yeah. What's that, Schumacher? What? He'll be talking to his car, won't he, and understanding it. There'll be something going on. Okay, I think the Mercedes. It's not really a Mercedes. Mercedes is a big white or silver thing from the 1930s. It's a Brawn. I'm sorry, it's a Brawn.
Also, you know, I saw in the press a couple of times people going, "Return of the Silver Arrows," and it's like, well, the car's not silver; it's grey.
It's grey.
The McLaren is silver and looks rather good on it, but the Mercedes is grey and it's rather dismal somehow.
Grey Arrows doesn't sound quite good.
The grey arrows.
That sounds more like a really awful aerial display team. They don't do anything exciting. They just fly around in circles.
An arthritic.
They don't do any loop-the-loops
aerial
and
display.
formation stuff. They just fly past, waving.
Slowly.
No, look, it's the grey arrow.
Oh. So we've got the grey arrows and, hooray, the yellow Renault.
Looks
Now
great.
that's a blast from the past. I can't wait to hear what Eddie Jordan has to say. That, given that he starts
he's just gonna
every question normally with
shut up.
when I
Gareth's
was back
just
at Jordan.
got a
it
little
looks-
model of what's
looks
exactly
like
It's a Renault Alpine 442B, winner at Le Mans, 1978 by Peroni and Jassard, of course. And it's the same paint scheme, almost exactly, apart from the elf bit, as the new R30, I think it's called, isn't it? The new Renault, And it's great. I love it. I love a yellow
See,
car.
now it's funny you should mention the elf thing, because I think there should be some laws about who has to sponsor certain Formula 1 teams. Renault, elf,
That's right.
Lotus, JPS.
That's right, yeah. It is a law,
If Porsche, whatever they do, Gulf.
Yeah,
The law.
yeah.
I mean, we like them on the Astons. We've discussed this before. Gulf looks great on anything, but really, if Porsche do any motorsport, Gulf. That's the law.
Martini are allowed to sponsor Porsche as well, of course.
Yes, but
And Lancia.
but only if Lancia aren't doing anything.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
right.
yes, I'll give you that.
Okay,
Or
Williams.
if Alitalia are busy and don't want to do Lancia.
Williams have got to be blue and white or blue, white and yellow.
Yeah.
Got to be
The law.
Yeah.
And they're getting closer again to it this year, aren't they? With the new what is it? What's the Williams FW
25, is it?
Is it
24,
good man for knowing
24,
that.
25, I think.
But watch Hulkenberg. He's going to thrash old Ruby. I love Ruby, but I think Hulkenberg will do him, man.
Yeah, Hulkenberg is good. He's
the best.
yeah, he does-
The best.
The best.
The best.
I think he's exceptional.
Are you aware of, for example, who Mercedes have got driving for them?
Well,
are you aware of who
okay.
McLaren have got driving for them? Are you aware, can I say, from the left field as well, are you aware of who Sauber have got driving for them, who did rather well in testing? Kobayashi.
Kamui
I was gonna say,
Kobayashi.
I'm really looking forward to seeing him back. You know, with a proper drive for the whole year. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing
That car's been bonkers quick, hasn't it? The Sauber. Bonkers.
it. It has,
So far.
but is that real speed? Is that real pace? Or
Who can tell?
I mean, you know, I know they're not allowed to run underweight anymore, but even so, that seems to come from nowhere.
Yeah,
You know, you'd have expected, you know, maybe the Red Bull to be quick. Obviously, the McLaren and the Mercedes, but
But remember, BMW were developing next year's car when the announcement was made to pull the
it's
plug.
Honda
They were
and
very
Braun
advanced.
syndrome all over
Isn't
again.
it just? This'll teach him.
maybe.
That's what they're saying in
Exactly, yeah.
Hinwil. Right, so Red Bull, we haven't seen the Red Bull yet, but by the time this programme's up, we may well have seen it. We've seen the Toro Rosso, which looks like the Red Bull. Very smart. Force India, we haven't seen yet. The Virgin racing car, the VR01.
They did this online launch, didn't they? And,
which didn't happen.
And it hasn't been... they haven't actually been testing it, have they?
They had 60 kilometres of proving in Silverstone on the national circuit, but they haven't measured the Valencia.
Exactly.
A couple of weeks. Someone said it looks like an Indy car, someone pointed out, and it does, actually.
But I think that's the colour scheme as much as anything, because it's quite a...
It looks a bit like a Texaco. Is it Texaco or a Valvoline?
It's
Someone
black
on the
and
Indy
red
cars.
and
It probably is. But
yeah, and then there's more sort of the way the colours are laid out on the car, the way that the colours sort of sweep around, and and the way that you get sort of banding of colour on some of the surfaces. I'm describing this very poorly, but the point is the way the colours are laid out on the car. It just looks more American than traditional F1.
Oh, right, well, you're going to do a bit of artwork. First thing you're going to need is a large canvas to paint on, and a little bit of back paint on the back end. Can you see that? A little bit of black there, and dab of red on the nose there. A little average of artwork on the front wing. Paint a little side pod sticking out there, and then all you got to do is a little white paint on the rear. It says Virgin. Can you tell what it is yet?
is it an Indy car?
No, not quite.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed! Absolutely mental!
Hey, so I meant to say something before about the Renault, which
Yeah.
I thought you might have brought up already.
Yeah.
That it looks a bit like a Jordan.
It does look like a blooming Jordan in all its yellow and black glory.
It's the red bits on the wing end.
That bring it in as well. That's right.
It's the
Which-
Jordan
It's the
touch.
whole buzzing hornets look. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much, I'm sure it's accidental. I'm sure they weren't intending to do that.
Yeah.
But not just the red, but also the way that they've got sort of black sort of teeth,
Yes.
serrations in parts of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got that very...
No, I don't mind that because I think it's a very groovy looking car. Possibly my favourite colour scheme, whether it's the retro harking back to Renaults of the 70s or that it's a sort of a strange unwitting nod to the Buzzing Hornets Jordans. The only thing that fills me with dread about it is how much Eddie Jordan is going to bang on and on about this in the F1 coverage.
And this is newborn Renault because it's run by Eric Boulier, who I know. He ran the Dams team. He ran the Team A1 France in the first few years of A1 GP, and of course put the first World Cup of Motorsport champions, Prémat and Lapierre, and he also had involvement in running the Swiss team as well at that point, and was streets ahead of everyone else. A very, very accomplished guy, and I'm thrilled that he's at Renault because he's definitely skilled. And I'm hoping that Renault do well with old misery
on a type of
guts.
stock cube.
Yes,
Bouillon,
Eric
yes.
Soup.
Bouillon.
Eric Soup. Yeah, I like him. Soup. But we've got Kubica in there, hooray, and Vitaly Petrov, who came runner-up in GP2 last year, I believe.
Now, is
And
he the
brings-
first Russian driver ever in F1? Is he first...
Ever. I think he is. Ever. Oh, yeah, I think he is.
I can't think of another.
Apart from Damon Hilsky and
yes, of course.
Eddie Irvinov.
You're trying to think we should have prepared this in advance, shouldn't we? But once again, we didn't. I can't think of any puns. Let's just move on. Yes, who brings with him a great deal of private sponsorship. Basically, his dad and his dad's mates, as far as I can work out. Well, he actually admitted
Oh, really?
this.
Is it,
Is that right?
He's
Petrol
bringing
money.
a load of money with him.
Good lad, thank you very much.
And normally that would be corporate sponsors. And it's like, oh yes, I've got IBM sponsor me, but no, he has his dad and his dad's mates, who are all, I guess, Russian oligarchs, have just fronted up to provide the cash. So he is, I suppose, a pay driver, but one that could be quite.
He
he's
is
not
decent enough, isn't he?
He's no Taco
yeah.
Nui,
He's done okay, so...
sadly.
Well, at least it wasn't Jacques, and it could have been.
Well, it
You
could
know
have
about
been-
this, don't you? Yeah,
could have
because
been Jack Villeneuve.
that Jack Villeneuve, that's right, yeah.
Your favourite driver.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's now the Genie Group who own the Renault brand for Formula One racing, or 80% of it, something like that, which is kind of bonkers in my
It is
view.
a bit weird, isn't it? If I was Renault, I'd be slightly worried, as much as what if the Genie Group that's decided to write massively racist slogans down the side, Renault, and then something unacceptable. That you just go, well, no, please stop, you are making us look bad. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it either.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's a strange position, isn't it? That's
I'm
going to
sure
go
they
wrong.
I'm sure they wouldn't, but...
Wait till you see you come to the first race, it'll just say Renault bum.
yeah.
Because they can.
They could just change the name of the team to the Renault Turd Formula One team or something like that. Or the Renault, or just something that would remind people of bad things whenever they were looking to buy a new medium-sized hatchback. The Renault Rotting Meat team, and you'd go, "Oh, I'm thinking about a Focus, but I might get a Megane." No, Renault, flies, smells.
So that leaves us with the teams who have not yet emerged, and some may or may not emerge at all. Lotus, Jarno and Heikki, their new car, it's not going to be black, is it? Because that colour's been bagged by the Virgin team. There's a competition on Twitter to name the two Virgin cars, and people are coming up with some very clever names, some very stupid names.
To name the cars?
Yeah.
Yes.
In what sense?
Well, in the way that Virgin Aircraft have all got names like Scarlet
Gotcha.
Lady,
Yeah, okay.
Memphis Belle.
Right. Yeah.
I know, not
Saucy
Memphis Belle.
Sue.
Yeah, Lady Penelope was always my favourite.
Really?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
lovely. Virginia Plain.
Oh.
See, they're all
very
Virgin
good.
release
Yeah,
songs,
okay.
you see.
Yeah. I
So
see
apply that to the car. But the best one, someone I saw came up with Race Ship 1 and Race Ship 2.
Like Virgin Galactic and these, Spaceship
Just
1,
remember,
Spaceship
sorry,
2.
wasn't OMD's Enola Gay released on Virgin?
It
was.
was.
Yes, it
Don't
was.
want to put that on an airplane again.
Enola Gay.
They'll
Not
dodge
when
that
you're
one.
racing at Suzuka again. No, not a good idea. No. I suggested Max Jaffa and Emma Peel because that car's not red, it's orange. It's signal red, which is practically orange, isn't it?
Yeah, I noticed that it looked red in the first photos or whatever those things, but then I saw another one where it was. You're right, it's orangey.
Like an XR3. Do you remember the old XR3 signal red?
Yeah, but that was red. I think it just went orange over time in the same way that red.
How short a time?
Well, I don't know. It's like Golf GTIs as well. Those, you sometimes occasionally still see an 80s Golf GTI that's not been looked after, and it's basically pink. The red just fades out.
Well, yeah, because the yellow tends to fade out, and you go to a more magenta-y kind of colour. Magenta seems to last better.
So the Lotus car, we hope, will be green or red, like Gold Leaf sponsorship, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
More
but it-
green, I think. I think they probably go for, if they're trying to remind you of old school Lotuses, they'll probably go for the green.
Do they have any sponsors?
Although the
Do we
black
know who are sponsoring them?
Air Asia will be sponsoring the car, certainly,
of
because they
course.
practically own it, don't they?
Do you know
The
what colours their
acceptable
logos
face
are?
of budget airlines
Yeah,
or something, apparently.
yeah.
But I don't know. Never
Yeah.
found it.
Campos, will we see their car? Who knows? They can barely pay Dallara, allegedly, who are building or designing, or both, the chassis for them.
Hey, do you want to hear something funny?
Go on.
USF1.
Ow! Ooh. US. Listen, the
Let's
name.
say they do well.
I know,
Let's see if they
I'm
turn
being
up
mean.
first.
The
Let's see if
name
they turn up first.
has unfortunate connotations. If I say that something to you is US, what does it mean, Zog? I wouldn't use that, mate. It's US.
Unserviceable.
Unsuitable, unserviceable. Yeah,
Useless.
It's a military thing. A friend of mine's dad used to be in the RAF, and he always used to. He's a big Scottish guy, and he always used to go, "Oh, it's US, that's US." You know, 'cause it was like they always say. But his family used to just use it. They'd mock him. He'd go, "Oh, I've got a headache," and they go, "Why? What is your head US, Dad? Is your head?"
Yeah.
Because it was his little mantra. But that's the first time I'd ever heard it.
So, unfortunately, US F1, it's like they're the
F1.
useless F1 team.
Yeah.
Poor them. But Stefan
Well, you see, that-
No, there's the proper comedy entry.
Stefan GP are sending a 40-foot truck of equipment to Bahrain just in case at the last minute Bernie says, it's all right, come on, onto the track with your driver who is...
Ralph Schumacher, apparently.
That's what it said.
Can you believe it?
It's almost like they were, because it also is Nigel Stepney not involved?
Yes, he
as well?
is. Yes, Nigel Stepney, who was involved in the whole Ligate. What do we call it? We don't call it Ferrari Gate
Photocopier.
Well,
Photocopy- Xerox gate.
photocopy incident.
at McLaren, and he's now this lot. Oh,
So just
dear.
to check, I mean, I'm expecting any day to read that the team principal is Flav. It's like they're assembling everything that's awful and manky about Formula One of the last few years into one hateful conglomerate, because there's someone else who's involved with it as well, who's disgraced in some way or is just generally lousy. I forget now.
What, Ralph?
I mean,
well, you got Ralph.
Take Ralph as red.
Reform, but
No, there's somebody else. I read this the other day, I'm sure, and I just thought, this is a rogues gallery team.
Max
and that
Mosley,
guy who owns it, probably, well, he's
yeah.
probably there. He's probably the money behind it or something, except that there is that guy who owns it, and there was a picture. They put out some pictures. You see this? One of them was in the workshop, leaning on the back of a Toyota Formula One car that was still all in the Panasonic colours. Now, you expect he's going to give it a quick blow-over with some rattle cans just before they go to the race.
And did you read the grammar of that PR release? It was written, it was the most appalling English. I mean, I know my Ukrainian isn't very good, or Georgian, or whatever it is, but the English was just abysmal. It was funnier than the sketches on this programme.
I'll tell you what, it's not always difficult, is it, really? If I was Bernie, if they turned up, you'd just go, I don't know, he never would, but you'd say, I'll tell you what, go on, get out there, back of the grid, or you can start from the pit lane. But let's be honest, give everyone a laugh, have a go. Why not? Have a go. Knock yourself out. Ralph, get out there, see what you can do. Because it's going to be unmitigated awfulness from start to finish, but it'll give us all a smile.
it has been quite a few years since we had a
Proper comedy
truly
team.
awful team out on track. So maybe this is the chance.
And do you know why? I think, I'm guessing, but I think Bernie is supporting this bid from Stefan GP because they're going to be really hopeless, because they'll be untested. They'll be
guessing money, but tell me for something else.
Well, I think it's also not just money, but it's to put pressure on the new teams to deliver. Look, guys snapping at the heels, Stefan are there. But
Yeah,
also,
okay, yep.
you can't lose. You know, if one of them drops out, Stefan are in, perhaps, if they'll allow it. Even if they get in, it's going to make the other teams look a little bit better, isn't it? So it'll make the newer teams, the new old teams, back in.
It's a win-win.
Okay, yeah.
Can't lose.
While we're here,
that makes
something
sense.
occurred to me the other day, because there's the thing they're going to change qualifying again with the tyres and that's all.
Well, the points. Well,
Yeah,
sorry.
the
Points for the
thing, yeah,
race.
yeah.
Qualifying, slight tweaks.
But then also Bernie, the rantings of a lunatic, said, what about this thing with shortcuts?
Yeah.
There's
Well,
shortcuts on the circuit, you can use them everyone. I've worked out where he got this from.
Hang on,
nonsense. Always,
hold on. Just let's not assume that these guys know what we're talking about here.
Okay, go for it.
Bernie
Explain it.
said recently that one way to spice up F1 was to introduce shortcuts, and you could use it four times out of five.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
4 or 5 times in the race, you could take the shortcut across the chicane.
That's what he was
Straight
talking
down
about.
the chicane.
So, and
Which
Richard,
sometimes
straight
people
down-
do
straight
by
down the corner.
accident in
Yeah.
places like Spa or somewhere. It
Yeah,
happens
yeah,
anyway.
true,
So,
yeah.
or Le Mans, where they've got them and they've got this polystyrene things, and it's always quite good when a car brakes too late and goes through them because they go. No, I've worked out where he got that idea from.
Super Mario.
No, he's just. It's the barely day goes by when he's not walking down the street and someone goes, "Oi, shortcut!" and he he misheard them. The FIA is delighted to announce the new points system for the Formula One World Drivers' Championship. For the 2010 season, the points awarded at each race will run as follows. First place, 25 points. Second place, 8 points. Third place, 19.6 points. Fourth place, a picture of a dog. Fifth place, 103,409 points. Sixth place, a holiday for two in Tenerife. Seventh place, your family will be spared. And eighth place, the eternal gratitude of the peoples of Sweden. Good. I hope that's completely clear.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed. Yes.
Okay, your nominations, gentlemen. Worst job in history. Right. Is it the people who have to clean out the sewers for us? Is it them? No? Is it the Welsh women in the 19th century who used to scrape dog poo off the pavements of South Wales to use them in the process of tanning leather? Was that the worst job in history?
Seriously?
Yeah. Or
Horse urine and dog we both used in leather processing historically.
Ah, that would explain why Dolgellau in North Wales, where I have some relatives, it has a tannery in town, and the whole town smells awful a lot of the time.
that does explain it quite rationally. Or is the worst job in history being Toyota's PR man in 2010, which has got to be one of the most difficult gigs you could ever have?
Yeah, pretty bad.
It's certainly just got a lot trickier.
Yeah.
It all started with. They don't have the Auris in America, do they? Have the Corolla in America,
Yeah.
and there's Have there been any incidents in Europe of this unexpected acceleration?
Yes, they have.
I
believe they have.
What actual documented ones where people have been hurt and stuff?
I'm not sure about any injuries. But as I understand it, yes, some British Toyota drivers had taken their cars to dealers, had asked them about it.
Right.
And the dealers didn't know much about it, didn't know what was going on, which was the surprising thing.
Before Christmas, I spent a short week in a Toyota.
Was it a terrifying death ride and you shouldn't have driven it? Sorry, I just turned into the Daily Mail then.
Yeah, it was.
Immigrants killed Princess Diana. House prices, cancer give you
homeopathy works.
Do you know what it
Did you
was?
see their front page? Don't drive your Toyota.
Is
What
that
a,
it? Yeah,
can I just say
yeah,
just now, just get off my chest, what a hateful, appalling, cancerous influence on our society the Daily Mail is.
No,
And if I could
no,
ban
no,
one
no,
thing
no,
in the
Richard.
world,
No,
it
I
would be
agree
the
with
Daily
Richard.
Mail.
Richard, it's not that good. Really, honestly.
I mean, because the thing is, the Daily Express is so awful, it's comedy and no one takes it seriously, at least you hope not. But the Daily Mail, people, have you ever seen middle-aged women, who are their basic constituency, reading the Daily Mail? And they have a Daily Mail face, and it's as if someone's just forced an onion wrapped in lemon juice into their mouth, and they're going, because they're so appalled at immigrants killing Princess Diana, giving us cancer on property prices.
But they're somewhat reassured by being offended by it.
Yeah, exactly. Of course they are. The culture of fear. It's pathetic. And if you work for the Daily Mail and you're listening to this, I hope you're ashamed of yourself.
It wasn't a terrifying death ride, my Avensis. It was a perfectly acceptable, very, very, very nice and very sensible car, which had something
like a typical driver in a Toyota, really.
well, this is it. This is it. This is what I'm coming to, you see. This car was perfectly good. Absolutely perfectly good. In the way that a Ford Mondeo is perfectly good. There's absolutely nothing you can fault about it. It might not ignite the soul. It is an appliance. It is a device which works every time you turn it on. It was fab. And something I didn't realise until I read afterwards, it was a continuously variable transmission, 6-speed.
I thought you were going to say something you didn't realise until you read afterwards, was that it was actually a Ford Mondeo. Because I'd say the Ford Mondeo is beyond perfectly good. The Ford Mondeo actually has a little bit of something to it, that it's a nice, it's a really properly good driver's car. But I guess, I don't know, I've not driven the new event.
Welsh car, you see, Richard Barry-Jones. I have to say that, I'm obliged to say that. Only just, though. One of his last, I think.
Yeah.
But the event is absolutely fab. There was no unexpected acceleration, which is a bit of a shame. Might have made it a bit more exciting. But it was a fab car. Slightly weird to park. For some reason, I really struggled getting into gaps. And I drive, as you know, all sorts of cars. Big cars, little cars. But there was something about this car that I couldn't quite place right. I couldn't see. And I don't know. It's an odd waste of space. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's halfway between an estate car, nice, low, long, and an MPV, tall. But you don't sit tall in it, so you've got a bit of headroom and stuff. And I think you sit a bit too low in the car. It was a bit odd. It didn't need to be quite as tall as that. You know, it's approaching the urban cruiser, the prostitute picking up sort of car. That's what it's approaching that with its tallness. It's just, it's not quite all the way there, but
I don't
just
know
enough.
if I'm alone here, Zog, but I literally can't imagine what the Toyota Avensis looks like. I'm really struggling. I think it's quite slab-sided, isn't it?
It's slab-sided. It's got quite a bluff front with that big old grille, because it is quite tall for an estate car. It's almost MPV tall. Perfectly good.
I'm sure it's very nice.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a reliable car. Which brings me to a point I was going to make. This throttle recall thing, if people ask me what kind of car they should buy and they have no interest in cars, I always tell them to buy a Japanese car because I don't want them ringing me up and going, "You idiot! You told me to buy that car that's now broken down." So I always tell them to buy a Japanese car if they just want, as you were saying, you know, a device that goes around and stops and things. And I still think, throttle pedal problems or not, a Toyota will do that. And I would still recommend a Toyota to someone. But I'll tell you what's interesting is that there is obviously a witch hunt on now. The Daily Mail is involved in, of course.
Hang on, it's the Daily Mail.
Don't get me started. Okay. So people are thinking that Toyotas are unsafe, and there's this witch hunt, and you know the Prius is being recalled now apparently because of an unrelated problem. If you go to the Vehicle Standards Agency website in the UK and have a look at recalls, you'll be amazed. Just as a case in point, the BMW X5 and X6 were subject to a recall at the end of last year for potential brake failure.
Yeah.
Now that means there's 1,000 minor league footballers who are in great peril. And this received no coverage whatsoever.
Yeah, because it's perfectly normal. And this is the thing.
Recalls
you have to get
happen
these things
all the time.
Precisely.
Do you know my favourite recall of all time? Well, just in terms of sheer patheticness for one of the worst cars I've ever driven, the City Rover, the nail in the coffin of our last national car maker. Just after they went bust, actually, there was a recall on the City Rover because on models were fitted with wheel trims rather than alloys. The wheel trims were so badly designed that the edges of them under hard cornering could cut into the side of the tyre and cause an unexpected puncture. So they
That is pretty poor.
They basically recalled them to have the wheel trims taken off. It was bizarre. You
Really?
sometimes saw them
That was
around that
it?
time, either with Halford's trims on, which the dealer, who basically
that's a
didn't
good
know where
look.
his next quid was coming from because the parent company had gone bust, had just stuck some Halford trims on, or just going around with no wheel trims on at all. For
Which is always,
safety
I think, which I
reasons.
always think of as a sort of quite a plain, sort of unmarked police car.
Yeah.
You know,
It's true, isn't it?
It may be morally questionable to feel sorry for one of the world's biggest car manufacturer or
Yeah.
any multinational corporation.
Yeah.
But I do genuinely feel sorry for Toyota at the moment. They are a product of their own success. They're suffering from their own success.
Well, you expect higher standards of Toyota because they have set the bar so high for quality in their production, quality in the production of everyday items. Until they set up Lexus, they were very much in the business of producing everyday cars, not luxury vehicles, but doing it incredibly well and refining the process of doing it, constantly improving their manufacturing. They've set that bar very high, so if you can't maintain that kind of standard all the time, it's no surprise. That's just what happens, when you make millions and millions and millions of things, some of those things, particularly when they're complicated things, will go wrong.
And of course, they're a victim of their own cleverness because, and the reason why they're the biggest car company in the world, and also why largely they make profit, is because they standardise things. And so you can tell what generation a Toyota is. Look at the exterior door handles, because they just settle on one design pretty much, maybe
Use it
two.
across everything.
Use it across everything. Have a look at Toyota. It will always have the same electric mirror switch, and it will always have the same column stalks, pretty much. They just standardise and then turn them out. So obviously this throttle pedal assembly, standardised, because there you get economies of scale also, in the most part. I think they probably believe it's a proven design, but they've been hoisted by their own petard here, because I think a lot of car companies, that would have been, if it was Ford, I imagine, I don't know if you know more, do write in, but I would imagine maybe the Mondeo has one sort of throttle assembly, but it's not the same as the one on the Fiesta, or the same as the one in the Transit, and therefore, if this thing happened, it would just affect the Mondeo, and it wouldn't get in the papers as much.
Because of that. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. They split up. It's for the same reason why airlines like Virgin don't fly an exclusively Boeing fleet. Quite deliberately. Half of the fleet's Boeing, half the fleet is Airbus. Yeah. So if the Boeing fleet, or any element in Boeing is grounded, they've still got half their fleet. It protects them because of the economies of scale.
On a micro scale as well. That's why the co-pilot and the captain never have the same food.
Exactly, it's the same thinking.
But that's an interesting thing, the comparison with aviation, because it does happen, I suppose, relatively speaking, it happens a lot more often in aviation that all of the Airbus A320s around the world, or all of the Boeing 747-400s, or whatever it is, are grounded for a short time because something happens that reveals a possible problem, and until all of the examples of that particular model have been checked out by engineers to see whether they've got the same corrosion happening on that particular pin in the tail. But you can't do that with cars, so it requires a different approach.
If you were Richard Porter or Zog in a car which suddenly seemed to be, all the accelerators sticking up, what would you do?
Well, this has happened to me actually years ago in a Rover 414 hire car.
It's pretty obvious, isn't it, what you do?
We'll just dip the clutch.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
If it's manual or if it's automatic,
if you automatically just knock
knock
it into
it.
neutral, you can do that in an automatic car, probably deliberately. There's no shift lock on it like there is trying to get out of park or going from drive through to reverse where you have to have your foot on the brake. Drive to neutral is just knock the lever forward. Simple as that.
So, to bring this whole thing to a conclusion, you know what I suggest? Toyota don't recall any of their cars. We recall all the stupid people who don't seem to have the ability to make that leap when necessary. They shouldn't be driving.
Natural selection. It's quite dark, almost worthy of the Daily Mail.
Are you an immigrant? You're affecting the price of my house and giving me AIDS, which is killing Princess Diana.
You've been listening to the rant of Richard Porter
Goodbye.
and Zog
Goodbye.
and me, Gareth. See you in about 12 days. Bye.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site or follow us on Twitter, go to GarethJones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!